Canon RF glass is super expensive. Dare I say prohibitively expensive? And Canon really dropped the ball by not letting third-party lens makers have access to their RF mount. Lucky for us, Canon eventually opened up the RF mount to Sigma, a really good lens manufacturer in my opinion. But so far, Sigma has only been able to release APS-C sensor lenses. Over the past 6 months, I have been saving up and collecting all of the Sigma lenses that are currently available. And I'm going to be giving you a little bit of my thoughts on the lenses and how I like to use them, what use case I use them for, and how I implement them into my workflow. Some of the lenses are great, I love all of them, and some you might want to skip entirely. First up, we have the infamous 16mm f1.4. If you have a favorite creator and they do talking head videos at their desk, it's very likely that they're using this exact lens for their favorite mount or camera brand. And rightfully so, because this lens is wonderful on an APS-C sensor. It gives you a 26mm equivalent on a full frame, and I am no exception to this. The video that you're watching right now is actually recorded on a 16mm f1.4 Sigma lens paired with the R10. I have the aperture set to 1.4. I love the look of this lens and the frame. I actually have 3 of these exact lenses, and I have 2 of them set up, one of them being here and one at my other desk, for talking head videos just like this. Moving up the focal range, we have the 23mm, and this lens at its full frame equivalent is roughly 37mm. I personally love the focal range in between 35mm and 50mm because that focal range is very natural, and it's the focal range that's perfect for an everyday carry. It's the sweet spot when you can't decide on what you will be using for an entire day and don't want to be fussing around with decision overload. I think we've all been there, right? Next up, we have the 30mm, a very popular focal length. Its full frame equivalent is 54mm, and this sits right above the sweet spot for everyday carry for my own workflow. But this is a lens that I carry around if I know that I'm going to be doing a lot of single or double portrait group shots with 2 or more people outdoors. Think of the 30mm to 35mm as a 1-to-1 comparison to what the human eye can actually see. Actually, I encourage you to try this for yourself. If you happen to have a lens in this focal range for an APS-C sensor, put that lens on your camera and put the viewfinder up to your eye and try to keep it in the same position as you slide the viewfinder away from your eye slightly, and you will be able to recognize that you see a very similar field of view. The same thing can be said about the 50mm focal length on a full frame camera. It's very, very close to what the human eye can see, making it very appealing to most viewers and your audience. By the way, I came up with the idea for this video from your comments. I make shorts on this channel that are quick and dirty, and I often ask you to weigh in with some questions of your own or to have an input on some ideas for upcoming videos. And I often respond to questions with video responses to the questions that you may have. I share a lot about what I'm doing throughout the day, and I also share a lot about cameras, lenses, and just gear that I'm using on a specific project. Moving along to our next and final prime lens in the lineup, we have the 56mm, which is roughly a 90mm full frame equivalent. And this puts us into our short telephoto lens range, and this lens is the one you want if you do strictly headshots. The compression that you get at this focal range is so good. This lens is for the person that knows they're going into a gig or a shoot with the intention of getting single or max two-person portraits. Any more than 2 people and you will be needing a lot more distance, which is not always possible, especially indoors or in a studio. I love using this lens for detail shots of brand products. It doesn't have macro abilities or close focusing distances, but it's good enough for me to get through a singular project. Next up, we have two zoom lenses from Sigma. And let me start by saying that these two lenses are perfect if you're not comfortable with using prime lenses just yet. You will lose 2 stops of light in return for getting a ton of flexibility with all of these focal ranges though, so please keep that in mind. The first zoom lens that Sigma has to offer is the 10-18 f2.8, and this lens is super versatile in close quarters. Its full frame equivalent is 16mm to 28mm. I use this lens as primarily a talking head lens inside my home studio because it offers a variety of wide angles that are very easy to frame up. This lens leaves me with a ton of headspace for graphics and animations if I want to put them in my videos. Another use case for this would be landscape or walking around a big city where you need to get the entire building in frame or an entire skyline of a city, as well as an entire scene of nature or wildlife or something that, you know, like landscape photography. F2.8 is plenty bright enough for most lighting conditions as well. Next up is the 18-50mm, and its full frame equivalent is 29-80mm. And this lens is for the person that just can't decide on what zoom lens or range that they want. Think of this as a 24-70 lens for any other camera brand. It's a nice range for almost anyone, and if you want to just have a one and done lens, this is the lens for you. So, if I could only have one lens, I would definitely pick up the 23mm. It's a really versatile lens for my personal workflow, and I'm very comfortable within that range. If I could only pick up one of the zoom lenses, I would definitely get the 18-50mm because of that flexibility and versatility. The 10-18mm is great, but it's a little bit more niche and requires a little bit more forward thinking and intentionality. Keep in mind that these lenses are budget friendly, and they do have some compromises. One compromise I found is actually an interesting one that I'm not sure a lot of people realize. Check this out. With a native Canon RF lens on a Canon body, notice that you get the entire sensor for autofocus points. And now take a look at what happens when I use a Sigma lens. The area is slightly reduced at the edges. Is this a big deal to you? Will you be focusing on the edges of your frame? I'm not sure, but for me, I think it's an okay compromise because these lenses are super affordable. Another thing to keep in mind is that these lenses are not L-series lenses. These are very much budget-friendly lenses, and they are a good quality, but you will notice some softness or fringing in the extremes of the lenses. If you are in the APS-C sensor world at the moment, I think that you're gonna love these lenses because I essentially have an entire kit for the price of a single L-series lens. But if you want to move into the full frame world and still want to remain within a lower budget or a smaller budget, I would encourage you to take a look at this video here where I talk about my favorite budget full frame camera. Adios.